Hello. Beep, 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 beep. Welcome to the Court of the Eating Jester. How are we? It's 3 o'clock in the morning. So let's begin our day with something very interesting that I've got for you. First of all, you can now join as a member and become a Jesterite. You see the join thing? Join. Come and join us. There's not many of us yet, but I'm hoping to grow it. We did a great video actually the other day, watched, and had a bit of a chat about it, about wicked people who dress up as women and hurt people, right, in film. It was fun, so if a bit gory, I think. There was a rather shocking scene in a lift. But it was fun to do it, because with the Jesterites. That's the game, effectively, isn't it? Hey, have a bit of fun. So we got the Jesterites, so come and join us as a Jesterite. And then you get these videos up front, without adverts, which is a plus, as they say. Okay? And then I put them out later for everybody else with adverts. So it's a way of getting rid of the adverts and stopping this demonetized business. Now, a few years back, when I started on this very strange journey, which I find myself on, long before the idea of the Winning Mindset for Warrior Teachers was a program at all, before it was even, a sperm in the testicles of my mind. Right? Before even that, I spoke to a man called Eric Kaufman, who you may know or you may not know. Go and have a look. Links in the dooberies to the article in the Daily Fail. And Eric and I chewed the fat about it all, but I think that both Eric and I we're certainly nowhere near the position we're now in terms of understanding. So the conversation was about generalized problems with losing your job at universities and all that type of thing. So I was absolutely delighted to see Eric has started something new, which I think you'll also find interesting. So I'm encouraging you to go and read the article in the Daily Mail. I'll give you my usual overview, as I do, and let me know what you think in the comments, because I think there's something going on here that's worthwhile, even though obviously many people will go, he's a ridiculous right-wing nutter. Well, many woke people will probably do that. I don't imagine any normal people will. It says here, headline, universities have become so terrified of free speech. I've launched a faculty of common sense, writes Professor Eric Kaufman, who was hounded out of his job at the University of London. Sound familiar? Woke ideology has a way of generating phrases that send a shivers down the spine, says Eric. To me, in particular, one chilling dictum sums up the dogma. The process is the punishment. Now, we had this conversation the other day with someone in the Warrior Teacher program. The process is the punishment. That's what it's about. It's trying Eric, that comes side by side with two things, I think, right? Two things. The process is the permanent. So it is two things. The process is the punishment, and the second one is that they are the thieves of time, right? That's how it works. A process that punishes you and something that steals your time and makes you ineffective. That's what it's designed to do. Don't you think? What do you think? Tell me in the comments. I think that's those two go side by side. He then says, what does it mean that merely being investigated for speaking out against hard left orthodoxy is itself a kind of torment? Academics don't have to be guilty of any professional misdemeanor. The accusation of a thought crime alone is sufficient to inflict anxiety and fear, silence opposition, and impose obedience. This week, in her first speech as Oxford's Vice-Chancellor, Professor Irene Tracy referred to a survey from last year. This found that while there may be strong agreement in the abstract that free speech should be protected in universities, only a paltry 20% of those who took part agreed that universities should allow all ideas and opinions to be expressed, even if some people might feel threatened as a result of them. As Professor Tracy warned, this highlights one of the tasks we have, making sure that free speech happens within the bounds of civility, intellectual rigour and law. Holy shit. Let me read that to you again, because I want you to understand what that is. Professor Tracy warned, he highlights one of the tasks we have, making sure that free speech happens within the bounds of civility, intellectual rigour and the law. What do you make of that? Give yourself a couple of seconds to have a think. Is it me, or is that worse? That's elitism. That's the coddling authoritarian totalitarian mindset right there. This highlights one of the tasks we have, making sure that free speech happens within the bounds of civility, intellectual rigour and the law. 80%. 80%, right, of the people at the university thought it was a good idea that some things weren't aired. We are in a very dangerous place, folks. A very dangerous place indeed, if that is the case. And this kind of, you know what I call it, shabbily coughing, goat's cheese eating, nerf herder from Star Wars. This Professor Tracy is dangerous. Right, so what I want to do is, people like Professor Tracy should be identified. Morning, Professor Tracy. Where are we going? Canal Street. Where are we going? The roughest pub. Why are we going there? You're gonna have a free speech conversation with a drunk gay at 11 at night. We'll give you civility. That's what needs to happen. Right, where are we going? Roughest council estate I can find. You're gonna talk to the folks in the community hall. This absolutely elitist, revolting idea. Oh, it must take place with civility. Why should free speech always be civil? I get together with my mates, we bite chunks out of each other. And often that's how we come to agreement or realisation. This nonsense that free speech is something that's practised, sat round quietly on a Friday night with half a dozen mates. This is the most profound classism, the most profound intellectual snobbery I've ever seen in my life. She said it, not me. Don't blame me. Don't shoot the messenger, you academic lot, you out there. What? I don't think we should speak about that. And if you're going to do it civilly, will you? Really? Oh, and with intellectual rigour. Right, so who are you excluding? Those that prefer not to be civil, can't be civil, or have never learnt to be civil because they've lived in a world where you shout and you get to hear if you want to get heard. And those that aren't intellectually up to the standards that you want. That's what it says, right? And then she puts "and the law," which I imagine, if they had their way, would be far stricter about speech than it currently is, even though it is currently very worrying where we are going with free speech. I mean, seriously worrying. Seriously worrying. We've got a new bill in February being run by Ofcom. Just found, did you see that woman from Ofcom? Absolute nut job. Absolute loon. But it didn't take long, did she? She scrubbed her Twitter. They always do, don't they, when they get found out? Absolute loon. Ofcom is completely captured. It's got to be to have her in a position like that. Otherwise they'll be going, no. Get him out now. Pay him. Give him $5,000 and tell him to go away. That's what they'd be doing. And Ofcom will be deciding what you and I can say on Twitter. We need to wake up people, and we need to wake up a lot more people to this unbelievably strange and quite disastrous way of thinking that is coming from the elites and then being fed down to the students who are too young and too stupid to realise that they're being indoctrinated by leftist morons with an extreme agenda. Is that what's going on? You tell me. Her attitude, he's a handsome chap. Her attitude, Eric says, emphasising limits on free speech is troubling. The pendulum has swung too far already, as I know to my cost, with free speech under assault as never before. As a former professor at University of London, I spent years battling woke forces within the institution, determined to hang me out after 2 decades of employment for daring to question hardline progressive beliefs. In all, I was subjected to 3 internal inquiries by the university and, although a non-disclosure agreement bars me from discussing them in any detail, I can tell you they made my life intolerable. Well, that's what they do. Process is the punishment, thieves the time. So what exactly was my supposed offence? As former head of the politics department at London's Birkbeck College, in recent years I had repeatedly criticised the illiberal excesses of self-appointed defenders of identity groups such as racial minorities and trans people. This had angered some staff and students. It seemed inevitable that my research, which included, for example, investigating whether academics make hiring decisions based on a candidate's support for Brexit, would eventually raise the hackles of the Ethics Committee. This body, Ethics Committee being in brackets, this is the kind of thing we have to start, Ministry of Thought. This body is now standard in most Western universities, but its decisions are coming to echo the warnings of dystopian writers such as George Orwell and Franz Kafka. At Birkbeck, the committee had the power to censor my research or even put it on indefinite hold. There we go. That's going to happen across the board, by the way. You're going to have these, like, communist parchicks, where they sit there and go, yeah, the party doesn't agree with this, you won't be able to do it. That's what we're headed. And you need to wake up and smell the coffee. Right. I'm now 53, and after nearly 30 years in this field, my challenging of left-wing ideology has increasingly marked me out among my colleagues. Previously, that didn't bother me. Universities are meant to be places of free inquiry and robust debate. I always conducted my work with scrupulous open-mindedness, but these days an open mind and a tendency to look at inconvenient facts can get an academic into trouble. By the mid-2010s, I was aware that the atmosphere was changing quickly. First at US universities, and by 2017 in Britain too. A new and alarming fundamentalism has come to surround identity politics in particular. Let me illustrate this with a statement by one of America's most famous Ivy League colleges. We envision a Princeton University community of practice that affirms, uplifts and celebrates women, femme and gay women whose appearance and behaviour are seen as traditionally feminine, trans and queer people, and that actively resists sexism, cis-sexism, believing that cis people gender identity is more natural than trans people's, heteronormativity, prioritising heterosexuality over homosexuality, and other intersecting forms of oppression on campus and beyond. Right? So he's up against the nutters that I'm up against and that warrior teachers can't stand. So, the nutters we're all up against. Except he's going to start a Department of Common Sense. Go on, Eric, give him. Hey, you don't like it up him. Shove it up him. Right, good luck to Eric, I say, and I really want to hear what you've got to say about this one in the comments. I'm going to try and get hold of Eric this week so I can have a chat with him. I think it's about time we had a catch up, all right? So listen, folks, go and read it. It's in the Daily Mail. There's lots more to it, right? But it's terribly worrying. I mean, it really seriously is worrying. Go and have a look. Let me know what you think in the old comments, as usual, yeah?